Welcome back. My name is Drew of Andrews, and today I'm playing Bannerlords 2. Today I'm going to be telling you about how to do my favorite build in the game, which is the Smith build. I like to think of it as the Smith Lord / King build, because that's really what you want to use it for, otherwise it's pointless. So when you start off the game, what you're going to want to do is that when you create your character, you want to put every single point you can into endurance, and then once you level up, you want to put as many points as you can into smithing. When you first start off the game, you're gonna start in this training field down here. What you're gonna want to do, you might want to go over here and buy a horse or two, and then to start off your smith training, you're gonna want to go all the way up into the Botanian area and go to Senion. What you want to do is you want to buy some wood either at this town or the nearby villages. There's a bunch of wood villages here, and you might want to come over here and get some iron ore, or down here as well. And then you want to get as much as you can. However, you do want to avoid looters as much as possible. And what you're going to do is you're going to stay in this town for a while until it gets sieged, which will eventually happen, and then you'll be forced to be out of the town. If that happens, what you're going to want to do is you either want to go to Marinath, because there's an iron ore village down here, or you're going to want to go to Iprustia, because it also has iron villages nearby and a wood village nearby where you can be able to buy the resources to make the what's it called? The smithing stuff. And now once you're in the smithy page in town, what you want to do is go to the top right, hit free build, and the only thing you ever want to make as a smith to make money is the two-handed swords. Now it's going to start off as a basic two-handed sword that you can sell. It goes usually anywhere between 400 to 1,000. If you're making $1,000 swords, you're doing well. However, you're not going to be doing the best, because to be able to do really well, you're going to need, if you go to the pork chart, you're going to need to have the steel maker. You're going to want the first pork you're going to want for your own character is the efficient charcoal maker, but you absolutely need steel makers. But I do not have that, because there's a special thing in this game. What you really want is you want the curious smelters all the way up. This is really the porks that you want for this, most of them at least. These the Fencer Smith and the Endurance Smith, it doesn't really matter. These two at the end. Same thing with the Controlled Smith and the Vigorous Smith. It doesn't really matter which one you pick, but it's important that you get all of these first 5 top ones. Another tip you're gonna want as a smelter is that you're gonna want to get 75 stamina, so that when you craft stuff, your stamina regenerates 50% faster with this pork. And now, once that you've made a few swords and you have a few thousand, you're gonna want to go around to each of the towns selling your swords and whatnot. Before you do that, you're gonna need about 20 or so units, but by this time you should have enough money to do that. And you're gonna want to go into your tavern district. Up here, you will be able to see potential companions. Now, the companions you want, you're going to want to have a medic. You need an engineer, and then my scout died recently of old age, but you want a scout as well. And if you ever see anybody who has, say, like Smith at the end of the name, this guy is one of my first companions I ever had. His name is Saluk Colbiter. You're going to want to have as many Smiths as you can inside of your party, because if you go into the smithy page and then you see your portion down here, you click on it and you can select different people to do different things. The next thing you're going to want is that your Smiths, you're going to want them all to have the Steelmaker perks. You don't want them to have the same curious smelting pokes as you do. And you're going to want most of them to have the efficient charcoal Kanmeku, and you want at least, in the beginning, at least one in the efficient iron Meku. I made my medic the efficient iron Meku, and then for most of them you're going to want practical or final. And then for one or two of your companions you have with you, or family members, because you can do it with family members as well in your party, is you want one or two of them to be a practical smelter. So this is so that when you're in your Smithy page, go over here to smelt, you can smelt down some valuable weapons that you find in your battles, and that'll bring you extra different types of steel that your own character can't make. But the important part about your character is that you're gonna put them in the forge, and they're gonna, because you got all the curious smith stuff, they're gonna get each of these up by one every few level ups. And I've leveled up, I've unlocked all the two-handed weapon stuff, but to be able to make the most efficient sword that you possibly can, you see this little symbol down here at the bottom right? That means, if you look over here, it means it will be used in civilians, which means it will be able to be used more in more different spots, which makes it cost more. And now, for the handguards, what you're looking for is the most length and the most hand armor. So this one, I usually use this one because it has 5 length and 5 hand armor. This one has a little bit more length, and the weight is also important. You're really going to want to experiment to see which ones sell for the best. In my experience, for me, this one usually sells the best. I made a whole bunch of these ones. You also want to look at the materials as well. It's like this one only cost 1 fine steel versus this one costs 2. And for all of the parts of the two-handed sword, you want the size to be as high as you possibly can. And then for the handles, all of the top 2 handles don't work for this. All the level 5 do not work. What you want to do is find a handle that allows you to have this one-handed as well, because that also increases the price of it, and it makes it a 1.5 sword. So you can use it with one hand or with 2 hands, which is very useful. And the pommel, you're gonna want to experiment whichever one you think's the best one, because my character is the only one who makes swords. Everybody else, they make the steel, they make the charcoal, they smelt down the other weapons. And so that allows me to be able to make 8 different swords in a single day with the amount of stamina. And with certain pokes, we're going to get pluses here. And what I like to do is I like to say plus down here. And now I'm going to make my 8 swords for the day, and these are the top level swords. So I mean, it's gonna take some time and grinding to get to this point, but it's definitely worth it to be able to make these swords. The time you put into the game, that's really only if you want to be a king or a queen of the entire world, because with the money that you make from sword making, you can pay off your troops, which if you have a lot of money coming in, you can go and hit to this trade. This town doesn't have enough money to buy any swords from me, but if you hit melee weapons, and I'm going to scroll down until, like, see, you can sell one sword. This one's not selling for as much as the other ones, for 34,000. Normally, the swords I make, they tend to go for 40,000 at a minimum, and then with certain pokes it makes the cost increase by a few thousand, and this way you can be able to get a bunch of money, which then you can use to improve your towns in the game, and you can also buy lords. And because I was able to buy other lords, I was able to, as an empire country, I was able to buy out other countries' lords and then put them into my country, and say if they're a different culture, say Kuzate over here, I was able to buy a whole bunch of lords from them, and because they have the same culture, they're not going to rebel as nearly as likely. And then with doing this, once you get a bunch of money, you're going to want maybe 10 million to start off with as a king. I mean, it's okay if you have like 5 million or 2 million if you start off as a king or queen, but you want a decent amount of money. For me, in the game, to make 1 million, it's not too hard. I just go to a different town and hit the speed up button, and I go to different towns. This town's kind of rich. It's able to afford 2 of my swords. Usually a town is only able to buy 1 sword or no swords at all. But this one's rich enough to be able to buy 2 swords. I sell 2 swords and I make 0.08 million, which is quite a bit. And then you can just go, at this point, once you make enough money, if you're making like 10,000 per sword, you can go to, or more, or a little bit less than, it doesn't really matter. You can go to each of the towns, make some swords, and then sell them as you move to each town. But eventually, once you make enough money, you will join a country, and then you will get a castle or a town. As a Smith Lord, you're really going to want a town or castle, because in one of your own towns and castles, you can stash stuff. So, say if you got a whole bunch of swords and they're really heavy, but you want to smelt them all down, you simply just leave it inside of the town, and it'll stay there unless it gets sieged. But if you have, because you have a bunch of money and you have a whole bunch of high-level units, it's not really likely it's going to be sieged. Another thing I really like to do, there's these pugos, I think that's how you say it. I like to buy all of them, and sometimes you can buy like 200 at once, which is really nice. And you go into the smithy. I grab my scholar guy, because he's the one who I made to be the best smelter. You go down to the pugos, wherever they are. Here's one of them. The pugos are really good because you can buy them for pretty cheap, for like 200. And then they give you 1 fine steel, 1 iron, and 2 wrought iron. And that's really useful because it gives you a whole bunch of iron. I have at least 200 pugos right now, maybe 300. I don't know exactly where they are in all of this. It says I have 25, but I have more at my capital. So another important thing, when you make a two-handed sword, you're gonna want to hit the lock button if you can't sell them. That way, when you're smelting stuff down, you don't accidentally smelt one of your swords that you want to sell. This has been me showing you how to be a smith in Bannerlords. If you found this useful, or if you enjoyed watching me show you how to break this game, because it's how you do it. This is how you break the game. It takes a lot of time. Like, I think this is a 100-hour run of this game so far, at least. Because most of the time, you're just sitting there smithing until you become an actual ruler of a country. Then a good amount of your time isn't just smithing anymore. It's doing battles, taking people over, and buying lords out. But if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like. It really helps. If you want to see more, please subscribe. If you have any questions, if you want to say anything, please leave a comment down below. My name is Drew Vanders, and I hope you enjoyed the video. And I'll see you guys later.